Hello, welcome to Unlocking Buddhism. Have you ever looked up at the sky and thought, maybe, just maybe, angels are real? Or maybe you've been somewhere, in silence or in the dark, and felt something you couldn't explain. A strange presence, a sudden chill, a moment that made you wonder, was that a ghost? We hear these stories all the time, from movies, myths, dreams, whispers around a campfire. We talk about them for fun, sometimes in fear. And most of the time, we leave it at that, just stories. But what if I told you, they're more than that? What if angels and ghosts are not just somewhere out there, but also in here? In Buddhism, angels and ghosts aren't about floating spirits or glowing wings. They're states of mind. They're ways of being, shaped by the thoughts you think, the emotions you feed, and the habits you build, day after day. A ghost isn't just a spirit lost in the dark. A ghost is what we become when we're stuck in craving, always wanting, never satisfied, always chasing, never arriving. And angels, they're not just holy figures in the sky. They represent the kind of peace that comes from within, a mind that's still, gentle, full of compassion. And the most powerful part? You don't have to die to become either one. You're already becoming something. Right now, your mind is shaping it, thought by thought, step by step. In this video, we're going to explore that world together. The Buddhist view on angels, ghosts, and what they mean for you. Because this isn't just about stories. It's about self-awareness, about the invisible forces that begin in your own mind and shape the direction of your life. So before we dive in, I have a small request. If something already clicked for you, even just a little, leave a word in the comments. Just one word that stood out to you. I'd love to know what you're taking in as we go. You know when you play a game and even if you lose, your character respawns and starts all over again? Well, life can be imagined a bit like that. Except in Buddhism, this game is called samsara, and it's a lot more serious than it sounds. Picture this. There's a giant wheel, like one of those from an amusement park, except it never stops spinning. Each seat on the wheel represents a different kind of life you can have. And depending on the choices you make, the feelings you nurture, and the way you live, you change seats. And the wild part? You don't always know when or why you switched. For example, imagine someone who lives in constant anger, full of bitterness and a thirst for revenge. In Buddhism, this person might be reborn as a hungry ghost, a being that's always starving and thirsty, but can never be satisfied. Now think of someone who's always afraid, always hiding, running, and feeling threatened. They might be reborn as an animal, living in a constant state of fear, just trying to survive. On the other hand, someone who lives kindly, helps others, cultivates peace, and meditates might be reborn as a deva, a kind of angel that lives in a beautiful place, full of comfort and free of worries. But, and here's the key part, even that amazing place doesn't last forever. It's like enjoying a 5-star resort, and then eventually your time runs out and you have to go home. And it doesn't stop there. Even the most evolved beings, called Brahmas, who live incredibly long lives full of peace and wisdom, even they eventually fall back into the wheel. Because everything that has a beginning must also have an end. Nothing in this cycle is permanent. This means that even though some lives are better than others, they're all still part of the wheel. Living inside it means living in a cycle where happiness comes and goes, suffering comes and goes, and nothing ever stays completely steady. A fun way to understand this is to think of a party. At first it's great. Music, food, friends. But after a while the music's too loud, the food's gone, someone spills soda on your new shoes, and suddenly you just want to go home. Life in samsara is kind of like that. Even at its best, something always shifts. And when you get tired of that never quite right party, the wish to leave is born. In Buddhism, that wish is called renunciation. And it doesn't mean becoming sad or negative. It's more like getting tired of a toy you once loved. You realize that, no matter how fun it was, true happiness isn't there. So, understanding samsara is like realizing there's something bigger behind all of this. It's seeing that the goal isn't just to get a better ride on the wheel. It's to get off the ride entirely and find a peace that doesn't depend on luck, location, or any type of life. A peace that lives outside the wheel and inside the awakened mind. So, now that we understand samsara as this endless spinning wheel, where we keep being reborn in different forms based on how we live, there's something even deeper to explore. The mind is the engine behind it all. And not just in a poetic way. In Buddhism, your mind isn't just reacting to life. It's actually building your next one piece by piece. Let's go back to that big spinning wheel. You don't just randomly fall into a seat on it. You're not rolling dice or waiting to be chosen. Imagine instead that your thoughts, your emotions, your reactions, especially the ones you keep repeating, are secretly drawing a map. That map leads directly to your next birth. Sounds intense, right? But it's not meant to scare you. It's actually one of the most empowering ideas in Buddhism, because it means you're not stuck. Your future isn't fixed by luck or fate. It's something you're crafting every single day, through the way you think and live. Let's break it down with an example. Picture two friends, Anna and Lucas. Anna is someone who's constantly stressed. She's always comparing herself to others, feeling like she's never good enough, and holding on to grudges. She walks around with a sense of heaviness, and everything seems to irritate her. Lucas, on the other hand, tries to be kind. He's not perfect. He gets annoyed too, but he's working on being patient, helping people, and calming his mind through meditation. From the outside, maybe Anna and Lucas both go to work, have friends, post vacation photos on Instagram, but inside, they're living in completely different inner worlds. In Buddhism, we'd say, Anna is slowly becoming a ghost, while Lucas is becoming a deva, not because of magic, but because their minds are already tuned to different frequencies. Ghosts are obsessed with cravings they can't satisfy, and Anna is stuck in that emotional loop. Devas live in peaceful, generous states of mind, which Lucas is cultivating little by little. And here's the key. Even though both are still human, they're already living like the beings they're becoming. Think about that. You don't need to wait for death to know where you're headed. And it's not about judging people. It's about understanding a deep truth. Your mental state today is the seed of your future existence. Let's imagine another scenario. You wake up and spend the day angry, irritated, full of blame. The world feels like a hostile place. Then another day, you wake up with a light heart. You smile easily, you help someone without being asked, and you feel calm even when things go wrong. What's different? Your house is the same. Your job is the same. The difference is your mind. And that's what the Buddha pointed to again and again. The mind is the root of everything. It's not just where your feelings live. It's the workshop where your next life is being carved. In fact, one of the most fascinating teachings is this. When you die, it's not like someone checks your resume and sends you off. Your last mental state, the final shape your mind is in, carries you like a current into your next form. So if your mind is full of fear, hatred, or confusion, it might lead to a painful rebirth. But if it's calm, clear, and loving, it opens the door to something beautiful. And this isn't just theory, it's something we can actually feel. Think about how your life changes depending on the energy you carry. If you live with kindness and clarity, you attract peaceful people and situations. But if your mind is full of chaos and blame, it seems like the world just throws more chaos your way. That's not coincidence. That's cause and effect. That's karma in motion. Because your next life doesn't begin in the future. It's already being shaped. Right now, moment by moment, thought by thought. And if samsara is a giant, wild ride, your mind is the steering wheel. And guess what? You're holding it. Now that we understand how the mind shapes our future, and that some people might already be living like ghosts, even while human, let's take a closer look at what that actually means. Because when we talk about ghosts in Buddhism, we're not talking about movie-style spirits floating around in the dark. We're talking about beings trapped in a state of deep, constant suffering, created entirely by their own minds. Ghosts, or Pretas, as they're called in Buddhist teachings, are often described as beings with huge, empty stomachs and tiny mouths. No matter how much they crave food, water, or comfort, they can never feel satisfied. They're tormented by longing, and everything they reach for either slips away or turns to fire in their hands. It's intense, but it's also a metaphor for what many people already feel. Think about someone you know who's constantly unsatisfied. They get a new job, but they want a better one. They buy a new phone, but they're already eyeing the next model. They scroll endlessly on social media, chasing likes and attention, but no amount ever feels like enough. Even when something good happens, it barely touches them before they're back to craving something else. That's a ghost mind. And you don't need to die to live in it. You just need to let your desires run your life. Now here's the wild part. According to Buddhist thought, when someone dies with that kind of craving, heavy, desperate, bitter mindset, they don't just leave those feelings behind. They carry them into their next birth. And that's how someone can literally become a ghost. Not because of punishment, but because that's where their mind already lived. There are stories in Buddhist texts where enlightened monks describe seeing these ghosts, some invisible to the human eye, some appearing only to those with deep meditative insight. One monk described them as wandering aimlessly, hanging around places they were once attached to, their old homes, restaurants they liked, people they couldn't let go of. But no one sees them, no one hears them, and their suffering continues in silence. But here's the key takeaway. These ghosts aren't suffering because someone cursed them. They suffer because their own minds are locked in patterns they never broke. Clinging, obsessing, resenting. It's like being in a prison where the door was always open, but you never realized you could walk out. Now people often ask, so should we make offerings to ghosts? And the answer from many wise teachers is surprisingly practical. Don't fear them. Don't obsess over them. Strengthen your mind instead, because if your mind is clear, focused, and steady, if you live with kindness and purpose, ghosts can't touch you. They may exist, yes. They may even be nearby, but they only affect people whose minds are easy to shake, easy to stir up. Like a glass of muddy water, stir it just a little and everything gets cloudy. But if your mind is like a calm lake, nothing shakes it. Not ghosts, not fear, not even your own cravings. So rather than running from ghosts or trying to bribe them with offerings, Buddhism invites us to do something much more powerful. Become the kind of person who doesn't turn into one. How? By working with your cravings, not letting them control you. By building peace inside yourself, not searching for it outside. By realizing that most of the suffering we fear, including ghost-like misery, is something we can already start to unbuild from the inside out. In short, ghosts are real, but they're not the real problem. A ghostly mind is, and that, you can change, starting right now. So if ghosts are the result of a mind tangled in craving and sorrow, what about the other side? What about the beings people often pray to? The angels, or as Buddhism calls them, Devas. After all, if ghosts are stuck in suffering, Devas are the opposite. They live in peaceful, beautiful realms. Their lives are long, full of joy and ease, and they radiate kindness and calm. Sounds amazing, right? And it is, but there's a catch. Many people, especially when life gets tough, start asking these beings for help. It's natural. We all want support. But here's the thing. The Devas didn't get to their realm by asking others for favors. They got there by cultivating the kind of mind that shines. They worked for it. And more importantly, they're not personal assistants waiting to solve our problems. Imagine this. You're in school, and instead of studying for your math test, you keep whispering to the smartest kid in class, "Please help me pass." Sure, they might be kind, but unless you open the book and do the work, nothing changes. That's exactly how it is with Devas. Yes, they exist. Yes, they're radiant, wise, and good. But Buddhism teaches us not to depend on them. Why? Because real strength comes from inside. Think of your mind like a garden. If you take care of it, water it, remove the weeds, plant good seeds, it will bloom. But if you neglect it and just hope someone else will come fix it, it won't grow. And Devas, wise as they are, respect self-reliance. They won't interfere where they're not needed. They show up when you've done the groundwork. Here's another way to look at it. A healthy mind is like a well-built house. It stands strong in storms, protects you from the cold, and gives you peace. But if you never lay the bricks, if you just sit there praying for a roof to appear, you'll be left in the rain. And let's be honest, How often do we avoid responsibility by asking the universe, or angels, or spirits to step in? That's not arrogance. That's awakening. That's the path the Buddha taught. Even more, when you develop that kind of clarity and strength, you naturally attract better conditions. You draw in supportive people, clearer thinking, better choices, and yes, maybe even subtle support from beings you can't see. But they're not helping out of pity. They're drawn to the light you're already building. So the next time you feel tempted to ask for a miracle, pause and ask yourself, what part of this can I already start fixing myself? Because here's the real secret. You don't need angels to save you. You need to stop acting like you're helpless. And when you do that, when you grow strong, calm, focused, you'll find that you don't need to beg for help anymore. You've become the help. You've become the light. We've talked about ghosts, how they're born from craving and mental pain. We've talked about Devas, radiant beings who reach peaceful realms not through luck, but through effort. And we've talked about how depending on external help, even from angels, won't get us very far. So now comes the big question. If you can't rely on others to save you, what can you rely on? The answer is simple, but powerful. Your own mind. Now I know that might not sound very glamorous. It's not as exciting as mystical protection or supernatural help, but it's real. And not only is it real, it's the most reliable form of protection there is, because no one can take it from you. No one can shake it unless you let them. Let's use a metaphor. Picture your mind like a house. If it's made of straw, meaning it's filled with fear, stress, and confusion, then the slightest storm can blow it down. Someone says a harsh word, collapse. Something doesn't go your way, panic. You feel lost, exposed, ungrounded. But what if your mind is made of stone, built brick by brick from self-awareness, kindness, patience, and discipline? Then when the storm comes, and it will, you're still standing. Wind, rain, ghosts, pressure, fear, none of it gets inside. Not because those things don't exist, but because you've built something stronger. In Buddhism, this isn't just a poetic idea. It's a real-life practice. The Buddha didn't promise us that life would be free of suffering. Quite the opposite. He told us that suffering is part of the deal. But he also said, there is a path that leads out of suffering. So what does that actually look like? Let's imagine two people walking into the same difficult situation. Maybe they both just lost their jobs. One falls into despair. They start blaming others, spiraling into anxiety, looking for something or someone to rescue them. The other feels the same pain, but they pause, they breathe, they reflect. They ask, what can I learn here? They might cry, they might feel fear, but they don't become lost in it. Their mind holds steady, like a captain guiding a ship through a storm. That steadiness isn't natural for most of us. It takes training, just like physical strength. And that's where meditation comes in. That's why ethics matter. That's why paying attention to your thoughts, your reactions, your habits, even the tiny ones, is so important. Because the mind isn't just something you're stuck with. It's something you shape. And the more you shape it with awareness and compassion, the more it becomes your shield. Not just against outer chaos, but against the inner confusion that causes most of our suffering. Think about this. What hurts more? The difficult situation itself, or your reaction to it? Someone insults you. The words sting. But then your mind adds, I'm worthless. Everyone hates me. Suddenly the pain multiplies, not because of what was said, but because of how your mind ran with it. Now imagine that same moment, but with a trained mind. Someone insults you. You feel the sting. Then your mind says, that's just their opinion. I know my worth. The pain passes. It doesn't grow into suffering. That's what real protection looks like. And here's something even deeper. A strong mind doesn't just protect you. It protects everyone around you. When your mind is calm, people feel safe with you. When you speak with kindness instead of anger, it de-escalates tension. When you choose understanding over judgment, you create connection instead of division. You don't just walk through the world, you help heal it. In this way, a trained mind is like a lamp in the dark. Not flashy, not loud, but steady, warm, dependable, and incredibly needed. And yes, you'll still feel emotions. You'll still face challenges. But the difference is, You won't drown in them anymore. You'll know how to stay afloat. You'll know how to guide yourself. Not because you've become cold or indifferent, but because you've become wise. So the next time fear shows up, or craving, or sadness, remember this: you don't need an angel. You don't need a miracle. You need a mind that's ready, and you can build that, slowly, steadily, brick by brick, breath by breath, because the world may shake, but you don't have to. So, what have we really uncovered in this journey? That angels and ghosts aren't just things that happen after we die. They're not floating somewhere out there, waiting for us in another world. They're right here, inside us. They're mental states, shaped by our thoughts, our emotions, our habits. A ghost isn't just a spirit. It's what we become when we let craving, bitterness, and emptiness take control of our lives. That constant hunger for something more. That feeling that nothing is ever enough. That's ghost energy. And if we live in that state long enough, we carry it with us beyond this life. But the same is true for angels. A deva, a radiant being, isn't someone with wings and a glowing halo. It's what you become when your mind is peaceful, generous, content. When you live with clarity, with presence, and with compassion. You're not waiting to be an angel. You're already becoming one. The most powerful thing Buddhism teaches us is this: nothing is permanent. Nothing is fixed. You're not trapped. You're not stuck. Your mind is always changing, and you get to decide how. You get to choose what direction you're growing in. So ask yourself, honestly, where is your mind leading you? Are you feeding thoughts that pull you downward? Or are you training your mind to rise, gently, patiently, breath by breath? You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to have it all figured out. But you do need to pay attention. Because every moment, you're building something. And what you're building becomes your next experience. Take care of your mind like you'd care for a sacred space. Clean it, guard it, light it up with kindness. Because in the end, your mind isn't just a tool, it's your entire world. And if this conversation meant something to you, if it gave you a new perspective or made you pause and reflect, then I invite you to keep walking this path with me. If you haven't yet, subscribe to the channel. That way you don't miss the next video. And if you know someone who could use a message like this, share it with them. You might help more than you realize. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Tell me, what part of this resonated with you the most? What kind of mind are you building right now? Thank you for listening. Thank you for thinking deeply. And until next time, take care of your mind, because that's where everything begins.